Future Dust is the sophomore album from the Reading-based band The Amazons. They burst onto the scene a few years ago with records like Black Magic, Junk Food Forever, and other records that were absolutely amazing. Stay With Me. And this is their follow-up album. If you've been watching these videos over the last few days, and you know that I'm just wrapping up my favourite albums of this year, and today we're looking at The Amazons. And what we're going to do is go in for this album track for track and look at what I like and don't like. Was a big fan of them when I first heard them a few years ago, and yeah, to say that I'm happy with their second album would be an understatement. Let's just go through track for track and get some reactions as we go. Mother was the first single that we heard from this album. I think debuted on Annie Mac's show back in, must have been kind of January time. I remember hearing this and just thinking that they really made a big advance than where they were previously. For me, the Amazons sat in this wonderful realm of kind of indie rock and roll, but were leaning to more towards something that's slightly heavier. And I think once I heard Mother, it honed back to way bigger sounds. Currently, you'd be comparing them to people like kind of Royal Blood and Foals. But I think, you know, listening to this sends me to kind of elements of Iron Maiden and Led Zeppelin, you know, kind of way heavier tones than like the soft indie touches that we were hearing from other bands kind of over the last 5 years. So by this point, we kind of knew if this was anything to go on, then we were going to be in a good place. And it's a corker of a song to start the album. I mean, the song starts with the most kick-ass drum line, and then when the guitar comes in, you know they're not joking around. That they opened with Mother live when they played Reading Festival this year. Anyone that's been subscribed to this channel will know I'm a big fan of Reading. Most of you were probably watching that gig with me. They came out to Mother on the Enemy stage, or the Radio 1 stage. Must have been 20,000 people there, and everyone was going doo-doo-doo-doo. And it was just monumental. So to hear this as their comeback record was incredibly exciting. And the chorus is so catchy. They've just done such an amazing job. This is one of the first albums I think I've ever listened to that's knowingly produced by a woman. And what an amazing job she's done. Her name's Catherine Marks. She's also worked with people like the Manchester Orchestra and Foals, alongside the Big Moon, Frank Hart and the Rattlesnakes. So we're talking about someone who really does know what they're talking about. And, you know, thematically throughout the album, she's done an amazing job of tying the records together. They don't sound too over the top. They sound incredibly balanced. They're also not like crunched to death. I just think that, you know, technically it's done an amazing job. And I love the way that Mother fades into the next track. Track 2, Fuzzy Tree, leads literally straight on from Mother, fades in perfectly. And I love it when bands do this with the first 2 tracks, because there's no one way for you to then listen to the album. You know, back in the day when records were cut to vinyl, you would literally listen to an album from start to finish. These days it's less of a thing, right? Because you don't even buy an album anymore, you just pick and choose. But this is built to go the other side of Mother, and it carries on with the up-tempo, raucous feel of the album. Fuzzy Tree, I don't know why it's called Fuzzy Tree, but it sounds exactly like how the guitar sounds, like a big fuzzy tree. And you know, once the chorus kicks in, it really does sound like some of those kind of almost 80s hair metal bands. And I don't mean that in a corny way in any way. It's kind of Guns N' Roses influenced, and all sorts is in there. I can imagine them with big mullets and leopard print trousers. It just feels like that, but it feels good, and that's not what I would expect to think from that sound. When I then went and saw them in Brixton later on in the year, I saw them, when was it? In November 21st, I think it was, Brixton. They opened with Fuzzy Tree, and yeah, you just saw the whole place, just the forward it got was incredible, absolutely incredible. The album then fades into track 3 with the song 25, which is a hell of a standout for me. This record has a real Arcade Fire sound to me. This feels like it could have been written by Win Butler. With the addition of the piano in there as well, it feels a little softer, maybe more towards the indie side and the softer side, but not in a corny way. Like, it still doesn't feel like they're taking any prisoners. It's just maybe a bit more of a dancey record. I don't even know how you describe it. I think if you've got a friend who doesn't like heavier sounds, then this is definitely one of the tracks to recommend to them. And later on, obviously it has a reprise and it sounds absolutely wonderful. 25 is one of my favourite tracks of the year. I think it's absolutely brilliant. We then go into track 4, The Mire, which is somewhat of an interlude. It's like a 30-second interlude. And like I said with the Slow Tie album, and with the SLP's album, sometimes having little breaks in a body of work helps build tension. And with the Mire, it just does a wonderful job, because then it fades into Doubt It. Don't they say take me out of the mire as well? Isn't that one of the lyrics? Let's look. Pull me out of the swamp, drag me out of the mire. Obviously, I don't know what the Mire is, but if it's the previous song, it kind of feels like it's just moving nicely out into this record. And it's a record that is a bit more chuggy, sounds like it could have fit very nicely on AM by Arctic Monkeys, has this real Queens of the Stone Age Josh Homme feel to it. That epicness that they build is wonderful. Kind of sexy as well as they do it. I think they've done a really good job of nailing that. We then move into track 6. 6, All Over Town, which is Lauren's standout record of the year. It's almost one of their slower ballady kind of songs. Oh, it's just a great record. This is the record that everyone kind of gets the lighters in the air and sings along to, and I think they've managed to nail that. Going from being a big heavy start, something a bit softer, and then obviously to sing along. This album literally balances all of that so well, and All Over Town is just same as 25. It's one of the records of the year. It's absolutely amazing. To think this is the same band that released that first album like 3 years ago, you can just see how far they've come, and if they carry on that trajectory, then they're destined for massive things. The next track is End of Wonder, which starts to pick up the pieces again, with especially that lovely drum fill at the start. You know, they could play this album from start to finish live, and it would literally control the audience in a perfect way. It has amazing peaks. It starts, it goes bigger, it kind of dips a little bit, then goes into something a bit smoother, and then it's right, let's get back to it. And I think End of Wonder showcases some of the more epic sounds that they've used in this. And it's not that everything's epic, that's what's so good. It's nice and balanced, but this is one where there's some wonderful like layered music in the background. You've got some guitar solos. It feels like something a bit more conventionally rock and roll, and I think that they've just done an amazing job with it. We then move into Dark Visions, which carries on that same kind of track of rock and roll. This one, I think, more leaning itself to something a bit more new that reminds me of people like Imagine Dragons a bit, but then it goes straight into that cowbell guitar lick, which just reminds me of Little Sister by Queens of the Stone Age. You know, I think you can tell their influences here. Well, and that's my opinion, right? That's not actually going to be necessarily true, but I'd be very surprised if they weren't listening to Josh Homme and Queens of the Stone Age when making this album, because it just harbours back to all those people that I've loved over the years that are making loud music. So, well done, I say to them. Just a big rock song. It's just a big rock song. Next, we get the Reprise of 25, which reminds me so much of Infinite Content by Arcade Fire. Like I said earlier, 25 reminds me of Arcade Fire, but if you listen to Everything Now, you get Infinite Content and then the Reprise of Infinite Content. This is very similar. It takes the same song, keeps the kind of acoustic guitar in there and the guitar feedback, but that's all it is. It's just something to sing along to and to make it even more epic. A little bit, and also I've just noticed listening to this, some kind of whispers to layer over it as well, which adds a kind of Nine Inch Nails kind of feel to it as well. I like it, it's really cool. The second to last track on this album is Warning Sign, which starts as one of those kind of, it's just a bit of a discorded guitar lick. Again, it's just Arctic Monkeys, Queens of the Stone Age, Foals, all of these people come to mind when listening to this. This actually also, we're going to be going over Frank Carter in the next few days as well, but this reminds me quite a lot of something you'd hear from Dean Richards of Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes. Just slow, a lot slower, but a lot more epic. We're ramping up towards the end of the album by this point, and I feel like I'm ready for a big epic end, and this isn't the end. Oh, it's so good. And then the last track on the album is Georgia, which starts off as this kind of slow, almost kind of Sabbath-esque, creepy record before kicking into just what we're used to by listening to this album. Big, epic rock songs. I mean, this sounds like a big heart rate record to end the album. That's what I take from this. And it just feels like a lovely way to send the album off. By the time the song has finished, you're ready to hit play again and just do it all over again. I think this album is a massive testament to where they've come as a band, what they've achieved over the last few years, and I just hope this is the trajectory that they're going on for their next album. If they continue on this one, they could go on to be the first headlining band of Reading Festival that are from Reading. I would love to see that. I think this album is so good. I really hope that we see them on the main stage next year, or even, you know, in the years to come. Just really excited to see what their next album sounds like now. I saw them on their tour. I've listened to this album over 10 times. It's just brilliant, and it is well deserving of Album of the Year. What do you think about it? Have you listened to this album before? Is it something that you were excited to check out? Have you managed to catch them on their tour? Did you see them at festival season? I'd just love to know your comments on this one. I am so in love with it. It's such a brilliant record. Future Dust by the Amazons. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers. Bye.